Now, tonight on our front, we will delve into the implications of the National Democratic Congress NDC's refusal to sign the peace pact ahead of the 2024 elections. The discussion will explore the concerns raised by the opposition NDC, including their demands for justice in past electoral incidents and their skepticism regarding the effectiveness of the peace declarations. The National Peace Council's effort to also engage the NDC and address their grievances will be analyzed alongside the potential impact of the NDC's stance on the overall electoral process. Key points of tonight's discussion will include the role of the proactive measures in preventing electoral violence, the importance of addressing systemic issues that could lead to unrest, and the broader consequences of the NDC's decisions on Ghana's democratic stability. The conversation will also consider the National Peace Council's optimism that a consensus can still be reached and the potential for the dialogue to resolve the NDC's concerns. This dialogue is crucial as Ghana prepares for what is expected to be a highly contested election, with the peace and stability of the nation, some say, hanging in the balance. Joining me tonight for this all-important conversation are Emeritus Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Konongo-Mampong, Most Reverend Joseph Osei Bonsu. Also joining this conversation is Professor Bafo, a former UN Senior Governance Officer. After this break, we will launch into the conversation and I'll bring you my guest. You welcome back to our front. Tonight, we are trying to put into proper perspective and analyze the very reasons the opposition and National Democratic Congress is refusing to partake in that all-important peace process, which results in a peace pact or an accord being signed one way or the other. Joining me in this conversation now is Emeritus Bishop, Most Reverend Bishop Osei Bonsu. Most Reverend, you're welcome to our front.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly, sir. I hope you are doing well this evening.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Now, let's start with how relevant, because that has been put into question now, how relevant is this entire process that results in the signing of a peace pact, or you may want to call it a peace accord? How important is this anyway?
I think it's important that the political parties sign this kind of agreement. In other words, they promise that they will do their best to ensure that there will be peace during the elections. So I think it's important.
This, many say, relies on moral suasion. So you are basically appealing to the conscience of the people involved. It has no force of law. So what really will be the impact of having to sign a document like that, Most Reverend?
And then you commit yourself to peace. So you do whatever you can to ensure that there is peace. So everybody will know that you have signed this agreement, and so you are committing yourself to peace. And so you will do your best to ensure that there will be peace during the elections.
In a country that has electoral laws, in a country that has prudent security laws, a security setup, one that also has distinguished people like you in the Republic, why is there an extra layer of a peace accord required for one that has been involved in elections, at least in the Fourth Republic, which is more than 3 decades old? Has this still not outlived its relevance?
I don't think so. I think it's good to commit the political parties to such an agreement. So if they sign it, then they will commit themselves to ensuring that there is peace. So I think it's still relevant.
What do you think about the position of the opposition NDC that they are not fascinated by that process. They have no interest, at least for now, in partaking and signing one document like that.
Well, they've given all kinds of reasons. They said that, there was violence in Techiman, people were killed, and there was no follow-up. And then there was some other violence, some acts of violence in Accra and so on. That is true. I mean, they're making their point. Those matters should have been investigated. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't sign this peace agreement. If you don't sign it, then what are you telling Ghanaians? That you are against peace or what? So I think if they sign it, so let them make their protest. They have good protest to make about Techiman and so on. But then at the same time, I think they should commit themselves to the peace agreement.
Now, is it not particularly worrying to you too that we are more than 4 months or so into a new election? During the last election, it was reported that about 8 people lost their lives. And up to today, there appears to be very little by way of investigation and subsequent prosecution of these cases. Is there a cause of worry to you as a member of the clergy?
It is a cause of worry. The matter should have been investigated by the police and other agencies. It's unfortunate that has not been done. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't sign the peace agreement. 2 wrongs do not make a right, And so they should try to, while they point that out, they should also try to be part of the peace agreement.
And if you could indulge me and hold on a second, I'll bring into this conversation Professor Bafo Ajimendia. He's a former UN Senior Governance Advisor. Prof, you're welcome to our front.
Thank you very much. And let me pay my respects to my dear Bishop Emeritus.
Hello.
He's a very well-respected bishop, and I'm glad to share the platform with him.
Now,
thank you, Prof.
Prof, let me start on this note. I mean, there are processes generally towards an election, and after more than 3 decades of engaging in multi-party elections and governance, is this peace accord process still relevant for our modern-day politicking ahead of an electioneering process which is currently underway?
Well, ordinarily, I would say it's not relevant because after all, we did not start the Republic with this kind of mechanism. But because of the subsequent kind of mistrust and tensions that are created by the parties towards elections, I think citizens at large have realized that perhaps it's important. But frankly, I'm worried because if after 30 years of this Republic, towards every election, we are going to have this kind of tension, the political parties are going to create fear and panic by their needless rhetoric, threatening either to hold on to power or to fight to get power. Those things for me are very unfortunate. After 30 years, one would have expected that there is some sort of maturity in our politics, and that our political parties, having gone through all this, by now we have wisen up to do what is right, what is proper. But very unfortunately, we cannot say that that is the case. And that's why perhaps we think at this point, this Peace Council and these initiatives to get them to sign on papers are a bit relevant in that respect. Otherwise, it's completely needless. And for many elections I've observed in many countries on this continent, Ghana could be perhaps the one or so countries that towards election we have to sit political parties down to put their signatures on the papers. So it's unfortunate, but that's the reality.
Prof, let me ask you this question. I hear a lot of people reference that. It's almost as if you are held to ransom one way or the other. So a certain political class delivers poor governance, a terrible economic situation. They end up actually, now when they are seeking among other things to play the game that gets one selected, which invariably does not result in the goals of democracy or dividends of democracy that many reports from academics, from others have observed we are not really achieving, we then have to sit on tenterhooks and beg them to come to a table and agree that they will be peaceful. Is that not fundamentally problematic?
It is truly problematic. And it's ironic that we have to do that. Because after all, after they've spit fire and brimstone, they get power, and nothing changes in the country. These two parties have been ruling us for almost 32 years, 32 solid years, equally split, 16 years each. And what have we seen? A lot of people are losing hope in our democracy because the democracy that we are practicing is yielding no dividends. So people question whether this is even necessary. Then at the same time, when they are struggling for power, they put the whole nation, as you said, on tinterbox, and people are, I'm just thinking, in fact, the IGP should arrest them for causing fear and panic. After all, people are arrested for causing fear and panic in our country. And that's exactly what these political parties are doing. So it's a serious issue. And I think, and I'm praying, this should be the last time they put us through this. And if they don't, then I guess this whole concept of and practice of democracy we have here will become seriously questionable. This is not how democracy is supposed to work. In a poor country where people can have enough to make ends meet, and yet you put us through this, and in the end we get nothing out of it. So it's a serious challenge.
How about the reaction to those who say it's a clear-cut indication of failure of institutions? So if your security system works, everybody expects that there will be election security, so there's no conversation about that. If the Electoral Commission does its work well, everybody expects that elections will be free, fair, transparent, and credible, really. So why are we having these conversations in the first place? Some say this is a damning verdict on the relevant, sometimes even independent institutions we have put in place.
Yeah, to some extent it's very true. To some extent, I think it's very true. You see, Dr. Farijan used to tell us, and I believe it, that Ghana has perhaps one of the best electoral systems we have created, at least on paper, the best. And he kept telling political parties that, look, elections are won or lost at the polling station. So if you are serious about winning or you are not serious about losing, it is at the polling station where you are supposed to have placed your own agent to monitor things and report things to you. So if we were to adhere to the electoral processes as laid down, and the security officers are doing their work professionally, and there's no room, the EC has given no room for anybody to doubt its credibility and transparency, then all these things will have been needless in our system. So yes, I think to some extent it seriously reflects first the weaknesses in our institutions. Secondly, it may also reflect just the nature of politicians, because if you have studied in this republic 32 years now, every party in opposition has doubted the integrity of the Electoral Commission. Every party. NPP in opposition questioned the EC to the extent that even when they want power, they found a way to get rid of her. So I'm not surprised this NDC is also doing the same. And they've done it previously, you see. So when you think of it that way, then maybe this competitive politics we have imposed on ourselves is the fault. Because when you have leaders competing for power, and as you know in this country, once you win power, you win everything. You call it the winner takes all. You win everything. So for the politicians, it becomes a do or die affair. And if you have been away or out of power for 8 years and you are famished, you know that's where you have to go to make up what you have lost. And I'm happy recently Obasanjo made a very interesting statement that in Nigeria, and as well as in Ghana, as we say, the most lucrative industry is politics and religion. People are milking people out of this. And what do we see? So we have a serious issue that I think we as a people will have to interrogate. And if we need to change some of the things we do, we should, even if it's constitutional, find a legitimate way to make changes. Otherwise, we cannot continue every 4 years to go through this kind of needless tension and threats of conflict and war that brings everybody together to sign a piece of paper. I don't think that's the way to go.
Most Reverend, may I ask you to speak to me on the conditions that the NDC has set for re-engagement on this matter? One of them being that they want to see the full implementation of the investigations of the Ayawaso West Wagon. I'm sure you would recall, sir, that there was a commission, a 3-member commission, with Professor Mensa Bonsu, Justice Short, and another person, a former IGP, Patrick Quatin, yes, on that panel. That commission came out with a report. That report went through the Office of the President. There was a white paper issued which disagreed with several elements of the commission's report, including the prosecution of some of the people. Now, the argument from the NDC is that until and unless the original recommendations of this eminent persons committee is implemented, there is no need at all to pretend that a peace pact will make any change. Do you truly believe that this is a prudent position to take? Yes, most right.
I don't know about the details of the commission's work, but something has been done. If that wasn't done well, maybe it should be followed up. But I don't think that should be the reason for refusing to sign the agreement. If you say you're not going to sign it, then what are you telling the people? Are you telling them that you are against peace? Certainly not. And so I think no matter what has happened, they should raise those issues. What needs to be done must be done. But then that shouldn't be made a condition for not signing the peace agreement.
Is their request, and I see what was said was full implementation. Is that even possible, mindful of where we are today? Because it involves prosecution, it involves other structural reforms to not only the police, but the entire election, security, architecture, and how responses in our various institutions are done. Is it really feasibly possible, even if government wanted to heed this cause from now till election December 7th?
I don't think it is possible. It's only a few months to go. We're in August, September, October, November, December. Only a few months to go. I don't think it will be possible to implement all that. And so while urging government, later commissioning the police to do their work, I think it's still important that we also demonstrate that we have the will to seek peace. And so signing the pact, I don't think is bad.
Prof, is this a realistic condition?
Frankly, when I heard of the conditions, I was a little bit disturbed, especially as my bishop just said, a few months to election time, and you throw in what Americans will call the monkey wrench, as if you want to sabotage the process or you want to, hold it hostage. Even though I have to say, I do sympathize with the concerns raised by the NDC. I sympathize with it because truly it's not been fair that all these incidents that happened in the past were not properly addressed, especially if the president himself has set up a commission. And even if you rejected some aspects, what about those aspects that were not rejected? So I think I seriously sympathize with the NDC. But those conditions that I've laid, I think is very unrealistic. Look, you want the Chief Justice to come and sign. You want the Attorney General to sign. You want the IGP to sign. And I was asking myself, why do you bring in these neutrals? Why do you bring in these personalities, these institutions? We are not capable as people. Between the parties, we can't reach understanding, or because we think government of the day has failed implementing certain things that we thought should have been. Therefore, this should be the case. But you see, if you think of the future, think of the implications of such a move. Okay. That henceforth, you're going to have the Chief Justice, you're going to have the AG, you're going to have all these people coming to sign. I think that's a little bit too far-fetched. So I do not subscribe to the conditions. But having said that, I have to say, yes, they have reasons to raise this concern, but not at this time.
Very
Finally,
well. I mean,
also
since you brought in the part of those people signing, I've heard the defense being that sometimes when it's left to just political parties, I mean, the other key players in our electioneering process appear to sit aloof or do not in any way help the process. So they believe these are also stakeholders, very huge stakeholders, who ought to be part of the process right from the beginning, so that everybody is on the table. Is that too much to ask?
But see, Raymond, the fact is that the Peace Council itself, in my humble view, has been a bit negligent. You do not wait for 4 or 6 months or whatever to begin to search for peace. I think when those incidents happen, if they issued a statement, they should have made certain demands on government for committing to these things long before now. And you don't wait 4 years and quickly reignite yourself and say, we are now going to seek peace. That's why I fault the Peace Commission. With all the good intentions they have, I think they should have been more proactive in addressing these matters. If they had done that, we wouldn't have come to this. Also, the Peace Commission must be backed by other civil society groups. It cannot be working in isolation because the issue they are dealing with is of major national interest and significance. So if we leave it to the Peace Council alone and they are not working, there must be ways for civil society to prompt them, to question them. And if in fact they liaison with the executive about these reports and these incidents, we have to know there should be transparency about the reports they issue, so civil society, the country at large, will know the efforts that they are making. But in the absence of that, everybody's wondering, like I'm wondering, why did you wait till now before you are raising these, before you putting them together to seek peace? So I think there should
fantastic question, Prof. It's the section about going forward and the role of the Peace Council will certainly be dealt with. But permit me to bring in Most Reverend to this question about other parties signing. Most Reverend, it is the view of the NDC that they want to see the IGP, the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, the National Security Coordinator, all sign the Peace Pact before they will be convinced that it's a document worth signing. Is that too much to ask?
So, yeah, difficult. I don't think some of them will be willing to sign. They will say that they are not directly involved in maybe the elections and so on. So they made that a condition. So if they give all those conditions, and if they say that they're not going to sign until about these people sign, I don't think it will work. I don't think they will sign. But I don't see some of them signing.
Shouldn't we encourage a broader, more participatory engagement around this process of peace building? So if they have identified them as other relevant stakeholders, would it be beyond reproach or would it be unthinkable to demand that they equally participate in this process? Because to the NDC, without all of these people being involved, it's almost like is some fait accompli or some mere process without any proper solid support.
They've given some conditions that these people should sign. Those are conditions that they're given. If they don't sign, then they will also not sign. And I don't think, you can suggest that it would be good if those people sign, and if they agree to sign, fine. But to make them conditions that unless they sign, you will not sign, that is a bit too much.
There's another point, though, they have raised about the initiation of prosecution in all the violence that happened in the last election. And all that they want to see is prosecution of the printing of ballot papers, and also, they also have not heard anything on it. They also want to see action, otherwise, they think that it may be repeated. Do we need to revisit the last election and the incidents that happened there and seek justice for those who deserve it?
I think it's important to show that what happened which was not right, is made right. And so if there were incidents, printing of ballot papers and killing of people and so on, those are legitimate issues, and they should be pursued. But within the time frame, the time left, I don't know if that is possible. But certainly the other case about the need to prosecute those who have done things that are bad, those who have killed people, those who have printed the ballot boxes and ballot papers and so on, certainly the other case.
Would you also believe that this is a fair demand, Professor Agyemang?
Yes, it's just unfortunate that these demands were not met much earlier. And again, it reflects on the kind of leadership, the executive leadership that we have, because these were national issues. And if all of us are interested in peace and fairness, when such matters come, I think the responsible authorities should promptly respond to them. And that's where, again, I find some problems with. But having said all that, I should say that I agree with the bishop. It's too late. Let us look forward, but resolve that henceforth, if anything of such nature occurs, there must be more effective ways of dealing with that. If we think our institutions are not capable of dealing with them, let us search for better institutions or strengthen existing institutions. And you see, there are so many things we can do. And I've had reasons to always complain about the excessive power we have given to our executive. Okay? If the executive is making all these appointments, and even when there is a shooting, killing, it got to be processed and approved to go for prosecution by the Attorney General. So all these are things we need to look at. We have centralized our politics and our systems so much so that everything begins and ends at the executive level. That is suffocating. So if you are not lucky to get a good executive person at the Jubilee House, you're going to be facing these kinds of challenges. Okay? So I think, I just seriously believe that after these elections, we should find a way to sit and examine our 32 years of democracy as we have practiced it, and let people raise questions, and let's collectively find a way to addressing such issues.
And it's an issue I will intend to explore when, in a couple of minutes from now, we come to the solutions. But if you could indulge me on this matter of confidence in the EC, the NDC says the EC has been shaken. They are not sure whether the EC have been forthright with them when it comes to the missing IT equipment from their warehouse and all the back and forth related to that. They believe that some form of investigation had to happen. And yes, this is part of the conditions they are setting before they append their signatures to the peace pact.
Well, by the way, Raymond, I think just coming to this program, I heard that the Peace Council has announced that they've made headway with the NDC, so this matter of resolve in terms of their signing the documents.
Yeah, that's a point I'll raise with you soon. Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. So no, I lost my track. So in that case, I think the parties, in this case the NDC, should fully cooperate. But I think what we need to do is to begin to look at how we avoid these issues. I can't, for the better part of me, believe that every 4 years, as a people, we have to go through this. It's too much for us. It's really too much for us. And I think our politicians will begin to reconsider some of the positions that they take. They are going for election to win power, not for yourself. It's for the people. It's for the people. But they behave as if it's a prize they have to win and keep and benefit without others. I mean, that thinking is very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. And I think we need to find better ways of managing ourselves when it comes to politics.
Most Reverend, the elephant in the room has been the conduct of the Peace Council. Many has had difficulty with sometimes the lack of proactiveness or the open display of the lack of proactiveness, since sometimes they tell us they are working in the background. In all of these conversations, and yes, we understand they say they've made headway with the opposition party on the way forward when it comes to this matter. In all of this conversation, has the Peace Council itself outlived its usefulness? Has it become a lame duck? And what can be done to improve that process of peace building, not just related to a couple of months to elections? Yes, Most Reverend.
Yeah, I think it's a good institution, and they should be encouraged, resourced, to do what they need to do. Sometimes they work in the background. You may not know what they're doing. They won't publish or publicize everything that they are doing, but they are not dormant. And if you look at the people on it, you want to believe that they have the welfare of the nation at heart. And so I think it's a good institution. May not be perfect, but we should try to do what we can to improve it. So I don't think we should do away with it.
Can the Peace Council be equally, if you like, applauded for the positioning they have taken over the period? It is the complaint that sometimes they refuse to comment on matters and then subsequently will create the impression that all that's required is peace. For example, the matter surrounding the comments of the Agri Minister has come up consistently on 3 different occasions. He's talked about, oh, we'll do everything to hold on to power. It is the view of the opposition party that that posturing is dangerous and that somebody ought to call him to order. They are consistently called on the Peace Council to do so, but they believe that has not been heard. And that kind of commentary has not come out from the Peace Council. Is this something that they should be encouraged to do more?
Well, I don't know whether they've called him or not. Sometimes they were behind the scenes. So
Okay.
whether they've called him or not may not be published, okay, or be publicized. But I think something like that they need to take into account. They should call the person concerned and point out to him that these statements are not in the interest of the nation. They're provocative and can bring about even war. And so I think they should deal with such matters. But whether they should come out every time and say that we have done this or that, I'm not too sure.
Well, the accusation of lack of open rebuke has equally been leveled against ever distinguished men of God like yourself, that we hardly hear you when people make reckless comments, that you're out there correcting them so that people can learn that that's not the kind of system we want in this country.
When we get the chance to pronounce on certain issues, we do.
Okay.
So if you call me and say, Bishop, what's your view of the Greek minister's thing? I'll tell you my view. But I just don't go around, commenting on issues without, So if there's a need for it, or if, let's say, you call me, I'll express my view about it. Certainly it's not good. Certainly it's not good. And last Sunday, I was at the grotto at Bonu, and without mentioning any names, I commented on this issue. Politicians who are saying that they will do whatever it takes to win power and so on. And I condemned it there without mentioning anybody's name.
No, I get your point, and I understand that perfectly, sir. Now, Prof, you talked about the Peace Council. Now, there's the conversation that Peace Council ought to be aided to do more than it is doing now. At least be more proactive in the performance of its duties, or let that duty be seen by the public. Are these legitimate concerns?
Oh, they are, very much so. But on your last question to my dear Bishop, I have to say that the president of the Catholic Conference, Bishop Conference, Bishop Jamfi of Sunyani, issued a rebuttal telling whoever made that statement that and I'm quoting, who are you to say you won't give up power? That was a very powerful rebuttal. Who are you to say you won't give power? So, like the bishop said, when it's necessary, they speak, either privately or collectively. And we have seen that throughout the years. So they do. So the Peace Council, as I said earlier, should be proactive Also, I don't know why they think their work should be in secret. There's nothing wrong coming publicly to say, look, this public official has erred. We need to stop that. We need to name and shame people. I mean, there are instances where you don't want to go public with names. I agree. But a case where somebody stands publicly to spit fire and brimstone, threatening all of us, 32 years of our democracy, every government has made sure if they lose, they walk away peacefully. So for anyone to insinuate that whatever means we're going to hold on to power, it's unheard of. So I think this is an instance where the Peace Council, in my humble view, should have come out to publicly pronounce on it. Because if we do that, then we will be deterring others who may want to come and speak recklessly in public. We don't need to tolerate that, okay? So I think whilst I can accept that some of these things must be done behind closed doors, especially when you are negotiating for some results, that cannot be done in public. Negotiations are never done in public. But where there is a certain statement made publicly, putting all of us at danger, I think the Peace Council should have the courage to stand up and be counted.
Now, by way of having to move forward with this conversation, going into the future, what should be done to make sure we do not come to the level of always having to seek peace ahead of elections? I want to start with you, Most Reverend.
Well, I think we have the National Commission on Civic Education. But they should be involved in educating the people about their civic rights, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and so on. And then also we have our churches. And so from time to time, priests and bishops should be able to talk about some of these issues because they concern the welfare of the people. And so these are things that we can do. So we don't have to wait until the elections, but if the NCC is doing its work, and then priests and the ministers, pastors are also doing their bit, I think it all helps.
Yes, and there's a question about fault lines and exactly what we can do about them. From where you sit, are there any fault lines ahead of the December election we should be worried about? Are there remedial action we can take now to make sure that we can have at least credible elections going into the future?
Well, we should address all the stakeholders. The Electoral Commission, they have their duty to perform, and they should make sure that they do it well. And so they shouldn't give a cause for worry. And so they should do what is necessary. And so they should make sure that the results that they come out with, those are the correct results. So they shouldn't rush to declare results and say that the figures are this, and then they come and change the figures. You know, it doesn't instill confidence in people. Then the other stakeholders, security agencies, the police, and so on. So they should also do their work professionally, and they shouldn't toe the line of any political party. So they shouldn't, because NPP is in power, they should do something that will please NPP. They should be professional. They should be neutral officially. And then our own people, those are the polling stations, the polling agents, and so on. Yeah, we need to educate them as to what they need to do so that they don't cause any problem there. And then the electorate in general, we should appeal to them to make sure that they exercise their right, but then they don't cause trouble at the polling station. So they should go and vote and then go home and sleep. And then when the results are declared, they can come out. Part of it, they will stand around and then there will be arguments and so on. Yeah, we don't want that kind of thing.
I will come back and ask you a final question about, we will not go to court, but please permit me to bring into this conversation once again, Professor Bafo. Prof, I was talking about fault lines, I mean, which ones have you independently identified that we should work on now to avert danger soon?
The first and the most important one for me, if it's possible, is to build some confidence between the Electoral Commission and the political parties, especially the opposition party. Because if you have observed, over the past year or so, there have been constant complaints about the performance of the Electoral Commission. Not that I'm supporting or I'm agreeing with the complaints, but you see, there's a saying that if you don't want a dog, give it a bad name, so you can hang it. So it could be part of that strategy to constantly poke at the Electoral Commission. That, I think, we should find a way to settle it so that the Commission can have the peace of mind to do its work. At the same time, we're also expecting, as the Bishop said, the Commission is a key stakeholder, is the referee, and its actions or inactions go a long way in ensuring electoral peace. I don't know what they're doing wrong, frankly, except the complaints I hear from the NDC all the time. And I think these complaints, if they are taken up seriously, oftentimes the Commission comes out to give explanation or rebut, and yet they continue to come. So the first fault line, Raymond, is for big people, the stakeholders, to find a way to reconcile these two institutions, the parties or the NDC in particular, and the Electoral Commission, so that as we approach these elections, we have peace. You know, at times I feel a little bit like I'm in the United States, when one candidate is saying, if I don't win, you cheated me. You know what I'm talking about?
I get you, yes.
If you constantly harp on that notion that you have to win, and if you don't win, there's war or somebody cheated you, that in itself is dangerous. You cannot go into election with that kind of mindset. And you know the reaction the Americans are giving to Donald Trump, who is pushing this kind of notion. I don't want to believe that the NDC is doing the same. But I think the constant complaints and all that must be managed. Because if you create that mindset that you have to win by all means, and you know, polls, pollsters make polls of elections and predict. In the end, those predictions become useless. Because you cannot tell the mind of the electorate. You can never predict. If I said yes to you today, tomorrow I may have changed my mind. So with all these things there, it's dangerous for any political party to go into the, of course, you are working how you want to win. The hope must be there. I'm not saying you don't have to hope for victory. But don't make it that mindset that by hook or by crook, you've got to win. And if you lose, the whole process has been wrecked. We don't want Trumpism in our politics here. We don't want Donald Trump in our politics.
That's an interesting perspective there, Prof. And Most Reverend, at this stage, I'll ask you this question. We've heard on the rounds in the run-up to this election, a court action after an election verdict disagreement has been deemed not to be an alternative by some political parties. Is this a step in the right direction, or we should urge caution on that particular position?
What's about the court action? I didn't get you.
Sorry,
right.
I'm saying that I've heard political parties and politicians say that this election will be won at the polling station. It has nothing to do with the court action, and nobody is taking it to court after the election is done. Ruling out the possibility of a judicial determination of any form as an election dispute, is that a healthy practice?
Well, it's good to be confident. If you are confident that your party will win, that's fine. But, you know, in all these matters, that's not necessarily the case. And so it could be that there's a dispute about the results. And so that, you know, that will end up in the court. And so while Party A may be confident of winning, Party B also will be confident of winning. But then when the results come out, it may not be in favor of either Party A or Party B, and the court may have to come in. We don't want it to be the norm, but we should roll it out.
Okay, now there's a related question about the campaigning season. Some independent observers have actually put out worrying signs that the elements of religiosity is playing up seriously, and they do not think that is a healthy development. Is it an issue you identify with, that instead of, say, having a partisan or even a political competition on ideas, affinity, the politics of identity, which relates to religious affiliations, is being played up well into the fray in a way that some find problematic? Is it equally problematic to you, Most Reverend?
Yes, I think if you are a priest or a pastor, you should be officially neutral, because in your congregation, some may be MPP, some may be NDC, and so on. And so if you align yourself with one political party, that is dangerous. And then also there are some pastors who have aligned themselves with political parties, and they are predicting that party A will win, and so on. Now, if it happens that party A doesn't win, then that is going to bring trouble. And so as pastors, as priests, we should certainly criticize things, issues that are wrong, but we shouldn't identify ourselves with any political party. We should be publicly and officially neutral.
I am most grateful to you, sir, for your time this evening. Most Reverend Joseph Osei-Bonsu is Bishop Emeritus of Konongo Mampong Diocese of the Catholic Church of Ghana. And now let me come to you, Prof. I raised two issues before the bishop left. One is to do with the religious sentiments being played up in this particular run-up to the election. The other one is also to do with what has been played out as we will not go to court because elections are won at the polling station. A refrain that started in the court itself. Are these healthy developments going into election 2024? Yes, Prof, if you could unmute. Yes, that's perfect now, Prof.
I'm on.
Yes, that's perfect.
Yeah. Yes. I was saying that, as the bishop said, if the decision not to go to court is premised on ensuring a fair, legitimate, transparent elections at the polling station and therefore giving no need to go to the court, that's perfect. I wish all the politicians think the same way, that we are going to make sure the process is clean, is fair, is transparent, so that there'll be no need for the court. On that premise, I have no difficulty. But if the statement has been made to imply that by hook or crook, we will settle matters at the polling station, then I'm afraid that's raising the red flag. And I don't think that is what they are thinking. So for me, I want to believe that that statement simply refers to their determination to be vigilant at the polling stations in order to ensure that there will be no underhandedness or any kind of that stuff at the polling station. The second point about religion maybe slightly different from the bishop point is right. If you're a pastor, you are a priest, certainly your congregations may consist of people with different political affiliations, and therefore you cannot stand in front of them and take sides. But I think there's another aspect, another dimension to this question, where people play on the religion of certain candidates and using it as a leverage to get support. That is what you may call religious politics, or and I think that is dangerous. We don't want that in our system. This country has been very lucky to be together, united, all religious sects over the decades. We haven't had any serious inter-religious struggles or conflicts or anything of the sort. And I think we need to keep it that way. We know, and this is not a secret, one of the candidates is a Muslim. And this is going to be the first time that a candidate is coming from that particular religious sect. There's nothing wrong with it. And I don't think anybody should use that either to gain or undermine the process. Once you play that kind of stuff, then you are bringing a new element in our politics that could be harmful as we go along. So I hope Ghanaians will understand that the qualification to be president boils down to just one or two things. You're a citizen of the country, you are a sane mind, that's some more that, and then also you are age, as the Constitution prescribes. These are the qualifications. It doesn't mention religion or anything of the sort. So I'm hoping that people will not overplay this to begin to create unnecessary havoc for us.
And I'm grateful to you for your time this evening too. Professor Bafo Agyemangya, ever wonderful, former UN senior governance advisor, for your very splendid, extraordinary knowledge you've shared with us this evening. I'm also grateful to you, Emeritus Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Konongo-Mampong, Most Reverend Joseph Osebonsu. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we tie the nice ribbons on today's edition of UPFront. Many thanks to you for watching.